Hello and welcome to another DataPath training video. In this session, we will look at the premium billing options on myRSC for the HR or Human Resource Administrator role. Once you're logged in as an HR into myRSC, you'll have a set of options across the top here. One of those, if turned on, is for premium billing. By clicking on this tab, you'll have some options listed on the left and also some of those same options here in the middle as well. Let's go ahead and just use the options here in the middle. So the first option that we have available is Employee Independent Search. This allows you to search for employees or their dependents as they appear in your DataPath administrative system. This also allows you to add new employees, add dependents, add coverages, perform qualifying events, and also edit the information that you've keyed in as well. So in essence, this allows the Human Resource Administrator to engage in the processing for a particular group by being able to add new hires or add employees that are active that are now COBRA eligible. To do so, they would simply log into the site. You would provide them with the HR access, and from the search options, if they were adding a new person into the system that did not already exist, they can go ahead and click Add and Next, and the system would go through a wizard. Or if there is an employee already in the system that they want to perform a qualifying event for and the demographics are already there, they can go ahead and hit Search and either put in a first name, last name, their SOC, their coverage status, and hit Search, or just search for all employees in the group, and they'll be listed here. For example, if I wanted to pull up an individual, let's look at Ken Bradley. We'd be able to see all of their history here from the search. Let me go back into that. Kenneth Bradley. We can go ahead and expand all his details and view his current mailing address. So that way, if we are going to send him an election letter for COBRA, we can make sure that it's going to the right location. All the covered dependents that are on the coverages that will be offered COBRA as well as transactions, who's on COBRA, who's just a QB, and if they've actually canceled or ended COBRA, meaning that they went through their full 18 months, or with extension, did they come off of that information? And in this particular case, they were on COBRA at one point in time, so we do see some additional history here as well. So this information does allow us to be able to glimpse into an employee's account and make sure everything's up to date. And you'll see that there's a little bit of redundancy in the add and edit options for dependents and the employees. One, we can do it from here. We can simply add or edit. We can do a search from here. Or if we can locate the employees and view their information, we do have edit options and the ability to perform qualifying events here as well. So that way we can, again, as the employer, see at any point in time where everybody's status is as they add them into the system. So engaging your employer to perform the ads for new hires or simply add employees that have actually had a qualifying event will feed back down into your DataPath COBRA system and can be imported through the Things to Do option. There is a couple of import options available, one of those being the myRSC import. So this is a great way to engage your employers in part of that participation and to help keep the information up to date. So that way you keep the emails down on your end as a third-party administrator, as well as any actual paperwork, if they can perform these functions online. So let's go ahead and start with adding a new transaction. So if they have a new person that they wish to add and to go ahead and offer them COBRA, they would just simply go here and add employee, presuming that they're not already in the system. If they click Next, they'll be led through a wizard in order to enter that information here into the system. So again, we do have information here that is required, and those are indicated by the little red asterisks here. Depending on the types of benefits that you offer, let's say that you have an age-rated type of plan, you can make items like date of birth a required field. Now, in this case, since we have kind of a traditional PPO type of plan with different tier levels that are set, we did not make the date of birth an actual field that was required for this employer. But if it is an age-rated benefit that requires to know the date of birth for the employee to calculate out correctly, then that may have had the asterisk here, and you can do that through your TPA configurations. So by adding a new person into the system, we can add as much information as we need and also based on what is required. So and if we had additional fields that we wanted to fill out, we could certainly add those here. Once you've finished out your information here, just go ahead and click next, and the system will work like a wizard through the process. Now, if you're just simply adding the employee for the first time and just adding active employees, new hires, and you want to send them an initial notice, you can check this box off, hit save, and as this downloads back into your things to do, it will trigger off the option to send them an initial notice. Now, if we want to go ahead and continue filling out the rest of the information as far as adding dependents, the employer would simply go through the next steps here where they can edit the employee or they can continue adding dependents here. And you'll notice the Social Security number was only required on the employee screen, but it is not required for dependents. So we can go ahead and add additional information. Oops. My auto-populate filled that in. Okay. Addresses. Extra information here. Next. And if there is a required field that was not filled in, you will receive a notification here at the top. So we do want to go ahead and fill that information in. All right. Next. And the system is set to auto-approve by the Human Resource Administrator. However, if it is a two-part process to where they want to just simply create the record but have it approved either by another individual HR within their organization or by the third-party administrator, they can select this option as well. So we're just going to leave it approved, meaning that there's only one employer contact that keyed the information in, and that's all the approval we need. Enter the information and hit save. If they need to add an additional dependent, they'll just simply click through and add another dependent and then add the rest of the information accordingly. Now, once this information has been entered in, then the employer is good to go. This information, again, will download into your things to do through the DataPath COBRA system and populate the system. The employer, once they've added employees, they could continue on and perform the qualifying event. Or if they're just adding the employee as part of the census, they can come back later on and add that information in. So they don't have to necessarily continue on with the process. They can stop, move on with something else, come back later and perform those qualifying events. So in this particular case, we have, let's see, we have Veronica Armstrong, who has been in the system for a while, but has now been terminated or had a qualifying event and is ready to go on COBRA. So what the employer could do is they could search by that name and hit search. And if they wanted to put in coverage status, they could do that. So we have Bill Armstrong, who is a different employee altogether, or we have Veronica. So from here, we can select her information. We can sort of see what information is here in the system. Let's say that we're about to perform a qualifying event, but she now lives at a different location. We could hit edit, automatically links us to the employee, and we can update the information accordingly. So that way, when we do send the notices out, the election form, that it is going to the last known address on record. Next, we can go ahead and save that info. And again, it leads us to the wizard here. So the next step in the process, we could perform a qualifying event. Now, just like in your DataPath COBRA system, you cannot perform a qualifying event until you first add those coverages. So if those coverages do not exist in the system, then it will lead you to that process. So we do want to add coverage, and we have different coverages listed here. So let's say that they are on the medical plan, and each valid and current benefit offered by that employer will be listed here. So if you have services like direct billing or retiree billing, those will be listed here as well. So you may not have nearly as much in the line of benefits as I do based on my sample data here. But again, based on what you have set up for the employer, that is what will be listed. So we now have a medical plan, and the employee had employee spouse coverage. And let's say that open enrollment was January 1st. So we would just simply select the tier level that they have, and the next screen will confirm who is covered under it. So Veronica does have additional dependents. So we do have Vince and we do have Rose, but Mary has since aged out, so she is no longer covered under the plan. They would just simply put in the effective date of the coverage, the last known effective date based on open enrollment or based on data hire or eligibility into the plan. Let's say again, their open enrollment was January 1st. So we could just have this information propagated down and say these are the 3 individuals that are now covered under that plan. We noticed that it was employee spouse. So again, maybe Rose is not covered for whatever reason. And it's just her spouse, Vince, and Veronica herself. Hit next. Oops, let me go back. Uncheck, next, and again we approve the transaction. If there is a custom subsidy that has been set up for the employer, you can add a subsidy on top of this, either by creating a custom subsidy or selecting from one that has already been set up for this employer. Once the process has been completed, again, the employer really only goes up to the point of performing the qualifying event. It will be up to the employee to elect at that point. So let's go ahead and finish our process. And we can now click on Veronica. We can look and we can see now that we do have coverages added, transactions that are pending. Again, these are waiting to be downloaded into your DataPath COBRA system and approved by the system through the import process. So once these are done, the system will handshake and actually process these into a green process status here. If you need to make changes accordingly, again, you can edit the employee, add dependents, add coverages, and update the information accordingly. So once your information is here, the employer again can continue adding additional individuals, performing qualifying events accordingly. So again, based on an individual termination or perhaps a layoff situation, reduction of hours, those types of things, they would just simply perform those functions online. And again, this will keep your DataPath COBRA system up to date with the current transactions, import into things to do, and then from there, any type of election notices, initial notices, and that need to be sent out, those will be sent out through the OMS fulfillment process. Additional information that the employers can do outside of just jumping and looking at the various transactions, they can see anything that they would need to approve themselves. If there is a checkbox here that they need to actually do a manual approval versus an auto approval, they'll be able to check the box and approve the transaction here. We have it set to auto approve, so all the employer has to do is key in the information, and by completing the process, it auto approves it for download into the system. They can view archived transactions. So anything that is older than, say, more than 90 days, for example, they would be able to view those archived transactions and see history. So nothing is truly ever deleted or lost out of the system. They just simply get suppressed and put into an archive status, so that way it doesn't clutter up your screens. But again, all these different processes here, you can see that you can also add, edit, perform the addition of a coverage or a qualifying event or add subsidy here. It tells you which user is also logged into the system, and if there has been any logins or approvals by the participant themselves, meaning they went in and possibly elected coverage or updated their email address or something along those lines, you'll be able to see that they logged in and performed those functions. Again, this is the same information that you would have from your TPA role that the employer will also have access to. The last options we'll take a look at are just simply your statuses. The statuses that an employee can be in are one of three. They'll either be regular participants, meaning that they are COBRA, retiree, or direct bill participants, or they've been offered COBRA, so they had a qualifying event and they're now in a QB status, or they have been offered, they were on the plan, or they have been terminated strictly out of the system. So again, if they were on COBRA, they served out their 18 months or any extension periods and have reached the end of their limits and have been terminated off those plans, no longer eligible for COBRA, they would be listed here. Or they were on COBRA for 4 months, they are now hired, no longer need COBRA, either through a notification or they just simply stop paying. Once the terminations have been processed within the DataPath COBRA system, they would end up on this terminated list. And the basic function is the same regardless of which option you choose. So if you're just looking at general participants, again, you can see from here that I have one person that is on the list right now as an actual COBRA individual. So we got Chadwick here that has elected COBRA. Again, if we want to look at that a little bit more, we can look at the dates. And if you'll notice, the dates that are offered to the employer are the same types of information that you would see within the events tab on the employee within DataPath COBRA. So all those different benefit events as far as when the event and what type of event occurred, when their COBRA started, when their election notice went out, all those mail dates and everything will be listed here. Qualifying event, when they accepted, so on and so forth, will all be listed here. There's also an export and a printable function listed here as well. So again, COBRA, the participants will show you everybody who is currently elected and within the date range and hasn't been terminated. If you've offered COBRA to someone, then they will be listed under the QB status. And we got a few more people that are in QB status here. Taking a look at a few of these, you'll be able to see the different benefits that are offered. So we got QB status for a dental, vision, and medical plan that was offered. So we can again take a look at the various dates on when they were performed, when it would expire if elected. If the notice was emailed out, and my sample doesn't have anything mailed, but an election notice mailed on, once we get the postmark date through OMS fulfillment, or if you manually put in the postmark date into each event, you'll be able to see the mailed on date listed here, and of course the last day to accept if it hasn't already exceeded, and you'll see a lot of mine have through these older dates. But again, you can break down into the details, and these are printable and exportable. if the employer wants this. Now, alternatively, you can set up reports through OMS to automatically generate with similar type of information to be sent to the employer if you choose, or to have them uploaded to myRSC. And of course, the termination is anybody that was on COBRA that has been terminated. Here's the reason: terminated for failure to make timely payment, or in this case, they were on vision and COBRA ended. So again, you can see those dates, that history, and again, with a printable and exportable page of these details as well. Again, from the employer's perspective, it's pretty simple. We're providing them the option of entering new employees, keeping them up to date, as well as performing qualifying events and being able to get some simple reporting from it. Outside of that, there's not much more necessary for the employer to perform in this particular case. So from this point, we'll go ahead and conclude our session, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.